his third wife. She never left Tahiti, and there was some complex stuff going on there for which his youngest daughter ended up committing suicide. But you can see what's going on there, and we're just going to move right along here because that's just too provocative. So, what happened 3 years after the Bounty came into port, and Fletcher Christian had already taken a lot of Tahitians to Pitcairn, was that Edward Edwards' Pandora came into Matavai Bay looking for the mutineers. Because Bligh had gone through Batavia back to England on one of the longest voyages in an open boat in that part of the world. And he was upset, as were the English Admiralty. And so they sent the Pandora to find him, and they found 14 of the original mutineers on Tahiti, not having moved in the time that they'd been there. And they put them in the brig, and the brig was on the quarterdeck of this boat. And the brig was called Pandoras Box. That's where Pandoras Box comes from. So, and the reason it was such a horrific story was because on the way home, they foundered on the Great Barrier Reef, and the boat sank. And only 4 of those Bounty mutineers survived because the rest drowned in Pandoras Box. So we were in medical meetings talking about Pandoras Box sinking. Okay, so that's the paradise story of how Tahiti got to be the epicenter of joy in the world, in the European mind in the 18th century. All right, was that the way it was? Did Balboa, was he the guy that discovered it? And was it just all roses and French panties? Well, no. It really wasn't. Okay, there was a lot of stuff going on in the South Pacific that had nothing to do with Tahiti and joy and wonder. First of all, there was diseases, right? You see the doctor's eyes perk up a little bit. So in the South Pacific at that time was TB and malaria and Chikungunya fever and leptospirosis, and this guy on the left has got elephantiasis or filariasis. He's a Tahitian. Okay, they weren't all gorgeous. Does anybody know what the one on the right had? The mask? It's close. It's actually yaws. Okay, and yaws is an important disease to have in the South Pacific if you're expecting company, and I'll tell you about that in just a minute. Okay. So they had infectious diseases and short lifespans. The average lifespan, depending on where you were, was anywhere in the mid-40s to 50. They had these little things called cyclones, which we call hurricanes in the Caribbean, and they call typhoons in the North Pacific. They had earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions. So there were natural disasters in their midst. They made their own natural disasters. On Easter Island, they environmentally ate everything around them and ended up with nothing, cut down the last trees. But more than that, they were mean to each other. Okay? They were their own worst enemies in some situations. So, does anyone know where this boat's from? It's not a Viking canoe, or a Viking...
Bora Bora?
No, it's not from Bora Bora. It's from the Solomon Islands. Now, the interesting thing about the Solomons was, if you looked at the prow of their canoes, and they're big canoes, these are 20 paddlers in each boat, okay? Right at the bottom of the prow was a dog-man kind of effigy, which they call a nguzu guzu, which I love. And the nguzu guzu had his hands like this, because whatever he had in his hands as they paddled would come in and out of the water, okay, and it would pick up the spiritual energy of whatever the mission was, and it would keep away the evil spirits who were also in the lagoons that threatened the mission at hand. So, because this is kind of a show and tell thing, I have my own nguzu guzu. This is a real nguzu guzu from Uepi in the Solomons. You see this figure here? That's a dove. How far would you need to, or how close would you need to be to see it going in and out of the water coming at your village? You have to be pretty close, right? It was probably a good idea to be close, because the other thing that the nguzu guzu held in his hands was a skull. So a lot of the times, the fleets of canoes that were coming into your village, okay, had skulls in the hands of the nguzu guzu, and they were coming for your head. Yeah. So you wouldn't put the kettle on, right? Those are what the canoes look like, okay? And headhunting was actually quite common in the Western Pacific. This is a headhunter from Tarajaland in Sulawesi. You can tell he's a Tarajan because he's got his buffalo horns. And there's all, I got a collection of stories about the Tarajan headhunters. They were working unto themselves. Okay. So they had diseases, natural disasters, headhunting, and cannibalism. Now the Solomon Islands, which had both headhunting and cannibalism, was called the Happy Isles by us. And Fiji was called the Cannibal Isles, right? So they were serious about this stuff, right? And these are actual photos. And they took it to a high art form. So those implements at the bottom are actually implements of cannibalism. Okay, they're to make sure that you pick the delicate parts. So far it's not looking too much like Tahiti, right? And then we have these guys, okay? And their tattoos were a little different. You know, they said things like black gangster, black power. And so there were Polynesian, the point is there were Polynesian as well as Melanesian cannibals, right? And they still exist today. Look at the grin on the lovely assistant back there. So we're going down to New Zealand in a couple of weeks, and my relatives are going to be insufferable because of this Australian thrashing. So the haka is actually what they did before they ate you. They used to pick their teeth to show you they were going to do that. And the words are kind of simple. It's I die, I live. The hairy guy put the sun in the sky. I'm going to climb up the ladder. The sun shines. Nothing profound.
That sounds so scary.
Yeah. So. We brought them gifts too. We brought them diseases. Okay, who said smallpox? Yes, exactly right. The one on the right. What's the one on the left? It's a tricky one for you dogs.
Measles.
No. This is secondary syphilis. Okay. And the Pacific guys never got secondary syphilis. They went right to the tertiary stage because they had yaws. And yaws disguised the severity of syphilis because there was spirochetal crossing immunogenicity. This is the doctor talking. So they had we brought them lots of diseases. Okay. We brought them little doggies. Now these are Balboa's little doggies, and they didn't look like that necessarily. They look like that. So these are bull mastiffs, and they're armored to the teeth, and they are trained to eviscerate anything in their path. And they're the SWAT team of the Spaniards. You know, I love the prevailing North American history about how the natives were so enthralled with the fact that the Spaniards had horses. No, they were enthralled with the fact that the Spaniards had these dogs. And these dogs were very, very dangerous. Right? So we brought them that. And then we brought them Christianity. So there's some fathers down here, some Catholic fathers down here on the right. They went to Ponape. And guess where the little picture on the left at the bottom here is from?
Pitcairn?
No, you might think, no. These two people are Tahitians.
Oh boy.
It doesn't look like paradise anymore, does it? No. So this is Protestantism in Tahiti before the British ceded it to the French in 1864. We brought them slavery. We brought them blackbirding. Usually on American boats. What would happen is the American boats would come in at night, and they'd round up all the males they could, and they put them in the brig, and then they would go as far afield as the Peruvian Guano Islands, so they would dig crap their whole lives. Or as in the case of the right-sided picture, Queensland in Australia for the cane fields, and they would never see home again. We brought them extinction. We killed off the Aborigines in Tasmania. And they used to people used to, on the weekends for fun, they used to line up and lock arms and walk across the island to see who else they could catch. This is in Tasmania. This is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. It's wonderful. It's called Wineglass Bay. And I have a brother-in-law named JB. We were in Wineglass Bay one day, and I said, JB, do you know the story of Wineglass Bay? And he said, yeah. I said, it's shaped like a wine glass, mate. But that's not why they called it Wineglass Bay. They called it Wineglass Bay because once a year, the annual southern right whales came through, and that's why they called it. So, we brought them more. We brought them this. We'll lean on this one, right?
Yep.
We brought them war, and they gave us back paradise. They gave us Belly High. They gave us Trader Vic's. They gave us all those guys in Southern California that thought they were coming to paradise once the GIs came home. This is Juanita Hall. She's from New Jersey. She's mouthing those words to Miriam Smith's version, and they're both black girls from New Jersey, New York. Doesn't matter. But that's what James Michener did, right? And then we brought them war. We brought them light. We brought them the biggest atomic atmospheric explosions that had ever occurred. We brought them over 400 of them. And the difference, there have been about 2,000 nuclear detonations since the Manhattan Project started. 400 of these, okay, over 400, a little over 400 were in the South Pacific, but the difference is they were not underground tests, they were atmospheric tests. Okay, so the entire area had been poisoned. And this is the Marshalls, because we've seen it now, and this is what we left them. Instead of fish, we left them tinned fish. This is in Pago Pago.